Hey guys, how's it going? It is another Tuesday. You know what that means? It's time for another Taco Tuesday. It is the 19th Taco Tuesday, and I'm so glad everyone joined us. Yes, what do we have new here? I'm in a new place. What else is new? I have a new haircut. Okay, I have a new T-shirt. So lots of new things happening, and I have a new drink. What are you guys drinking right now? I am drinking this vitamin C orange drink. It's from, it says fresh tea. Healthy, low calorie, but everyone knows that all teas are low calorie. But either way, just a couple shout outs. People who came in early today: Sana, Yanman, Gabriel, Jason, Haku, Rita. Thank you so much for coming in early. The YouTube channel is kind of like in there. There's tons of chatting going on. You guys are welcome to chat all throughout the entire talk. Right? Have a fun time. Enjoy your time together. If you guys have any questions or anything like that during this talk, anytime you want, write the question down. We'll have these keyboard warriors in there that will take those questions and put them into the queue, and we have the Q&A at the very end. Right? I hope you guys had an amazing and awesome weekend, and I know that it's going to be a fun time today as we talk about the story of Deborah. Well, you know, back then they called him Deborah, but we can call him Deborah. Okay? So today we're going to go to the story of Deborah. So everyone, get your drinks ready. Get with your coffees, teas, juices, whatever it is, and let's enjoy a time of the story of Deborah. Okay, so let's get right into this story. Now, a lot of people don't know the story of Deborah because Deborah is a very, very small story in the book of Judges. Okay, now the thing you have to know is all throughout the story of the book of Judges, it's all about Israel disobeying, and then they get punished, and then they come back to God. It's just this whole thing going over like 6-7 times. Okay, so what happens here is Israel abandons God. That's what happened. Israel abandons God, and not just for like 1 year or like 6 months. They abandoned God for 20 years. They're under the rule of the king of Canaan, and he has his general in his army. His name is General Sisera. Okay, now General Sisera, powerful general. He has this one weapon called war chariots. Okay, if you guys don't know what a war chariot is, war chariot are these huge chariots pulled along by like 10 horses. And not only is there a driver, but there are 4 archers on every chariot. Guess how many chariots he had, guys? General Sisera had 900 chariots. Okay, he had 900 of these war chariots, and he was bullying Israel everywhere they went. They would, go and raid the land. They would bully the Israelites into doing whatever they wanted. Okay, that was General Sisera. Now, at that time, there was a prophet and a military leader, a very surprising one, and it is Deborah. Okay, so Deborah was the prophet and the military leader at that time. It's very interesting. Why? Because she's a woman. Especially back in those days, women never had power. They weren't able to, but God chose Deborah at that time to be the prophet and military leader, where men are the only ones that fight. And that's actually a rule in the Israel army. Only able-bodied men are able to fight, and they're considered the highest in society. Now, what Deborah does is, what happens is, 20 years of being subjected to the king of Canaan, General Sisera coming in, just raiding the lands, doing whatever he wants, making people pay taxes. And finally, the Israelites have had enough, and they say, you know what? Let's call back to God. And they all start calling to God again, like, God, help us. God, you really got to help us. So Deborah hears God's voice, and he calls a military leader. And the military leader that he called, his name is Barak, right? B-A-R-A-K. Now, Barak had 10,000 soldiers, which back then wasn't that much, okay? But if you think about it, guys, he had 10,000 soldiers, but they're going against the most technologically sophisticated war machines back in those times, which were those war chariots, and 900 of them probably could have slaughtered all 10,000 of those people. So basically, Deborah says, God's got a message for you. And the message is, I've heard your cries out to me. What I want you to do is, there's a certain area by the waters, and I want you to go there, and I will hand over the enemy and General Sisera to you. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting, because Barak listens to what Deborah says, and he says, I'll only believe you if you come with us, right? So he has this doubt in his head, okay? So he's doubting what God says to him. He's like, yeah, look at this situation. Yeah, I don't know. But if you come with us, I know that God will grant us victory. So what happens there? Deborah says, okay, since you doubted the words of God, and then, you doubted God, God says that you will not receive the glory, Barak. You will not receive the glory of defeating General Sisera, but a woman will gain all the glory. Okay? So, next day, they go into war, and they bring the 10,000 men at the top of a hill. They see the chariots. They start running down. And then all of a sudden, it says that in the Bible, it says that God put confusion into their hearts, but more importantly, rains came down. And since it's right by the waters, it began to flood. It made the ground into mud, and all the chariots got stuck. Chariots get stuck. They don't know what to do. They start running off, and the Israelites, 10,000 of them, rout every single one of the charioteers. There are four archers plus the drivers. They all get killed. Now, General Sisera at that moment, he sees what's happening, and he's the only one that escapes, and he runs away, right? So Sisera begins to run away, and he goes into another area, which is an ally with the Canaanites, right? So he's like, oh, these people are friends with us. So he goes in, and he finds a tent, and he says, please, I've been running. I'm so famished. Please give me some water. And the woman at that time, her name is Jael, right? Or Jael, right? And she doesn't like the Canaanites either, or General Sisera. And she gives them some milk and says, don't worry, I won't tell the enemies where you are. And Sisera is so tired, he goes to sleep. She puts a blanket over him. And then, as disgusting and gross as this is, back then, you have a tent peg, right? A tent peg is like this long. Like, this is a really large drink, but this is like a tent peg, okay? And in this tent peg, it's probably longer. It's about this thick. And while General Sisera is sleeping, she grabs the tent peg, puts it to his temple, gets the hammer of Thor. It's Mjolnir, and she goes, "Quah!" And the tent peg goes through his temple, through the other side, and basically General Sisera is killed by a woman. And the prophecy that Deborah gave was true, that Barak would not be the one that receives the glory, but the glory came through a woman. And they're both Sisera and Barak and Deborah are so happy. They sing a song, and they're like, oh, God saved us. And then in the very, very end of the story, what happens is 40 years of peace, okay? So at the very, very end, there's peace for 40 years. And this is kind of that short story. This is almost every single detail, guys. It's a very, very short story. So you guys can read on your own in Judges chapter 4 and 5, okay? So like every week, as we learn a little bit more about these Bible stories, one thing that we have to understand is, what are these three things that we can learn, right? There has to be three things we can learn every single week from every story. You know what? There's probably 15 to 20 things we can learn, but we want to focus on just three of these things. And one of the things is, guys, this is for both people who are spiritual, who have faith, who are not spiritual. This is about life. Through other people's experiences, we're able to learn about life itself and how we can live in a better way. So let's take a look at three things, right? Three things, three reasons, three things that we can learn from the story of Deborah. Number one, nothing fixes itself. And you're like, what the heck does that mean? Nothing fixes itself? Right? I'm going to share this cool story. From the very, very beginning is Genesis chapter 4, verse 7. It's when Cain, right? Cain basically is so upset that God doesn't receive his sacrifice. And God basically says to him this. God says, dude, if you do what is right, you'll be accepted, right? Which means that as long as Cain doesn't do what is right, he's not going to be accepted. All you have to do is do the right thing. If you do the right thing, you'll be accepted, right? What do I mean when I say nothing fixes itself? Israel and God had a problem. Israel abandoned God and turned around to someone else, right? That was their problem. Now, here's the thing. It didn't just fix itself. God doesn't come in with some type of magic serum or magic remedy. It's like, okay, we're going to fix it anyways, right? Israel actually had to do something. And God did not do anything until after 20 years when Israel finally called God again. After 20 years, finally, Israel calls God, and not until then did God start to work again. And what I'm telling you guys is this: nothing fixes itself. I'm talking about in our everyday lives when we have problems with people, we have problems with things that are happening in life. Nothing is going to get fixed until you do something. Nothing fixes by itself, right? Problems don't fix themselves. You have to take care of it. If I give you the simplest analogy, if your car has a flat tire, what does that mean? If your car has a flat tire, it will never be fixed until you fix the tire. That's all you have to do. The tire's in the back trunk. You jack it up and you put in the new tire and it'll never be fixed. Another thing, guys, is relationships. Relationships are the same thing. We're at the end of the year. A lot of things that we need to fix with our friends and family, right? Or our bosses or whatever things at work. And the thing you have to realize here is a lot of people are very good at what you call ghosting, right? We all know what ghosting is. You know, like, oh, I have a problem with this person. I'm going to ghost them, right? And basically, you just ignore everything and you're like a ghost, right? You're like a ghost and you pretend that they don't even exist in your life. It's really weird. So one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, like, you're going to solve the problem by not talking to them. It never works and it never will, right? Even when you have problems with people, if you can run away from him and then, you know, haven't you guys ever had those times where you have a problem and then you come back together, no one says sorry, and you kind of just like brush it under the rug, and then no one says sorry and you just kind of move on and you think everything's okay. But what happens when the next problem comes? When the next problem comes, what do they bring up? They bring up the last problem. They remember it. Why? Because it's unsolved. It's unresolved. These problems don't fix themselves. We have to be the ones that fix them. There's nothing that fixes itself. And even with God, he waited 20 years until they finally came and said, all right, guys, let's deal with it now. It'll never be resolved. Nothing fixes itself. There's no magic remedy. And guys, in life too, it's the exact same thing. In everything that we do, nothing fixes itself. Second thing, a really good one too, is don't doubt your decisions. We call it 3D. DDD, don't doubt decisions, right? And if there's a good verse that I liked when I talk about this one is James chapter 1, verse 6. And it talks about our faith, right? And it says, when you ask, like we're talking about asking God and praying to God, believe and do not doubt. Because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. And they're not going to get what they want if they doubt, right? And doubt is something that's very, very important because one of the biggest points I want to make is doubt is one of the things that actually destroys trust. It really does. It's the thing that happened to Barak. Deborah, God speaks to Deborah. Everyone's calling out to God. He said, hey, God says you're going to take care of this. You're going to take care of this, right? And he's like, oh, really? Can you come with us? That small little doubt took away his glory. God wanted Barak to have he did. He really wanted Barak to have the glory. It was originally for him, but because he doubted, it was given to someone else, right? People, our relationships, everything that we have is exact same thing. It's really interesting though. What is a sign of not trusting someone in a relationship? Very, very easy. Haven't you guys ever felt bad when someone asks you like the same question like 4 or 5 times? Did you tell them? No, I didn't. You sure? No, I didn't. Are you sure you didn't tell them? I just told you twice I didn't tell them, right? And they're like, are you sure? Promise to God. Swear in your mom's grave. Swear on your 2 cats that died last year and swear on them. And then I'll believe you. And it's kind of like, what the heck? It's like, there's no trust. And because of that, I get hurt and I'm like, what the heck? Why don't you just trust me? I told you I didn't say it, so I didn't say it, right? Remember guys, trust comes before doubt. You got to understand what that means. Trust comes before doubt. Trust comes before doubt is you don't doubt until they give you a reason to doubt, right? One of the things that it's really, really troublesome is you're already doubting and they haven't done anything wrong, but you're just assuming, are you sure you didn't tell them? Because I only told 3 people and how did they know? You must have told them. And you're like, I didn't tell them. So when that doubt creeps in, what happens? Remember I told you in the beginning, doubt destroys trust. Right? Trust first. And then when they give you a reason to doubt, then you should doubt after that. But if you keep doubting everyone, you're going to have no one that trusts you and people are going to look at you like, wow, this person doesn't even trust me. And I'm their friend. How could they think that way? Right? Trust before doubt. When they start giving you a reason to doubt, then you're going to be doubting. But if they don't, it's no worries. Right? You got to trust them. Right? Trust them until they give you a reason to doubt more than anything else. Okay? Number 3, last but not least, the third of the 3, this one might not make sense to you, but it is reality check. Okay? Reality check, whenever you go through difficult situations, it's always a reality check. Like someone says, are you sure? Like it's a really difficult thing. You're like, huh? And you're like, well, in reality, if we look at it realistically, and then we're like very negative, like, yeah, reality says that, right? The verse I'm going to show you today is in Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8 and 9. Very, very good verse. And basically all it says is that our thoughts and God's thoughts are so different. Now, we're going to think about this is why. Why is God's thoughts and my thoughts different? That's what we have to think about, is why is it so different? Okay? Why is the level of thoughts different? And the answer is, it's because the level of knowledge is different, right? See, reality check. When you think about a reality checks only come in difficulty, right? A reality check comes in difficulty. Because if it's not difficult, you're not sitting there like, well, realistically, reality, like we don't do that if it's an easy thing. It's always in difficulty, right? The situation, what does the situation feel? Impossible, right? Situation seems impossible. It's not going to happen. And then someone says like, well, then why are things possible with God, right? What's the biggest difference? Why is God's thoughts higher than our thoughts? And the answer is this. It's knowledge. Knowledge is the biggest reason. And I'll tell you this, guys, why knowledge is the biggest reason. Have you guys ever had this before when you were younger? Like, you have a math problem and you have no idea how to do it. You've tried it so many times. It doesn't work. It never comes out properly. Like, what the heck? There's a problem with this problem. There's no solution to it. And then you get your older brother to come, or an older sister, or someone in school who's been through that class already. Like, oh, yeah. And then like, and you're like, huh? Like, yeah, okay, there's the answer. You're like, huh? In the situation, the level of knowledge that you have, what happens? You think it's impossible. Yeah, and it's true. It is impossible for the level of knowledge that you have. But what if you have more knowledge? These people come in like God, and it's like, impossible. They're like, and you're like, how'd you do that? What? That's so crazy. Why? That's why knowledge is such a powerful thing. The reason why God's thoughts and our thoughts are so different, the level of knowledge is so outrageously different, which means that, let me tell you guys what the biggest reality check is. What is the biggest reality check? The biggest reality check I'm telling you guys right now is you don't know. And you have to realize that. The biggest reality check that you have to realize in your head is, I don't really know the situation. I don't know, right? When you think you do, right? Or when you think it's impossible, it's at the level that you're at. And at your level, things might seem impossible. And that's reality. At that level, it's impossible, right? Think about this. Barak was thinking like, Deborah, there's 900 war chariots and no one has ever defeated them. Impossible. They have 4 archers, unlimited arrows, 10 horses, and like on the chariot wheels, they have these like swords that come out, and when it drives by people, it cuts their legs off and stuff. And you're like, what the? There's no way. There's no way it's going to work. But then when you see how God wins, helps Israel win, the water floods, makes it mud, chariots can't do anything. They all die. Why? Because once these people come in, they're archers. Archers are not hand to hand. They're long distance. But once the chariots all stop in the mud, these warriors are coming. They're like, ah! They start running away and they all get killed, right? It's much different than we think. We don't really, that's the biggest reality check we all have to understand is we don't really know, right? There are so many times in life, guys, because our level of knowledge is only here, it's impossible. But when you meet someone who knows more, what happens? You'll understand is to them, it's possible. To us, it isn't. That's the difference between an amateur and an expert. When I was in Korea, like 2 years ago, I was learning chess and I was watching these people and they're like, these guys are geniuses. And the answer is they're way better than me. For me, I'm like, this is impossible. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. But we have to realize, guys, is that reality check, the greatest reality check we have to understand is it's just we're limited by knowledge. We don't really know. And we have to understand that really clearly in our hearts that we really don't know. Okay? So that comes down to the last, that is the final point of the 3. And we're going to review it. Number 1 is, remember guys, nothing fixes itself, right? You have to fix it. You can't do it by yourself. You have to fix it yourself. You can't, nothing's magically going to disappear. Second thing is, don't doubt decisions, right? Remember, doubt destroys trust. So you have to trust first until they give you a reason not to trust. And last but not least is a reality check. And the biggest reality check is, guys, we really don't know. We don't know everything. And that's why it might be impossible only for us, but not for other people. And we have to realize that in life, so many of these things are happening in our lives. And just from the story of Deborah, I hope that you guys really understood it and received a lot from it. Okay? So that comes to the end of this. It means it's time for question and answer. So make sure you post your questions down. I am going to have a sip of my drink and we'll begin today's question and answer. All right, got a lot of new people here today. Great, awesome. Okay, so here we go. Question and answer. Let's go with the first question today. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and write them down. First question from John in Singapore. How can I stop doubting someone if they keep letting me down? Okay, so here's the thing. That's what I was saying is, if someone is proven, has given you reason to doubt them, then you should doubt them, right? How do they restore? Well, you're not the one that restores people's doubts. That's not your job, right? If someone keeps disappointing you, someone keeps doing things to make you doubt, you're not the one that has to change. It's actually them, right? It's true. Because they're the ones letting you down. They're giving you a reason for you to doubt. That's why that's not up to you. But the only thing that is up to you is you have to be able to communicate to the person, say, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I have a lot of doubts and reservations about this, and I don't trust that you'll be able to finish this. And the reason is because of this. But, I hope that if you really value this relationship, that you will try to restore, right, these doubts that I have. But you've done this to me 4 times already, right? So stop doubting someone. If they've given you a reason, then it's on their side. They're the ones who have to restore it, right? Because, how foolish would it be is if if this person keeps letting you down, and every time you're like, oh, they keep letting me down, and you keep trusting them and not doubting them, it's actually your fault, because they've proven to you that they're not reliable, right? Or that they will betray you, or that they will not trust you well, right? And that's why that is on their side. You can communicate that, say, hey, I don't trust you and I have a lot of doubts about you. And that's something that you have to take into consideration, but that's not on your side, it's on their end. That's why if they've continuously kept letting you down, it's on their side more than your side. Okay? Thank you, John, for that wonderful question. Let's go to the next question. It is Dean over there in Hong Kong. Says, it's interesting how 2 women are the key figures in the story, especially because women were not looked upon highly. Is there a lesson to learn from that too? I'm not going to go into something like, oh, women are strong, just as strong as men. That's something that, in God's eyes, everyone is equal, right? The problems is in people's eyes, people aren't equal in people's eyes, but in God's eyes, they're equal. So back in those days, women were considered lesser than men. So it is quite interesting, actually, because whenever you see these prominent women in the Bible, like these women who are doing big things in the Bible, they're usually people that are using their body, hey, and then they would tempt the person to stop. They'll tempt the person in that physical way, right? And that's how women usually are portrayed in the Bible. But in this instance, in this story, you have 2 very strong and powerful women. Now, what is the thing that we can learn from this? And one thing that I look at is, from the human perspective, women were not looked upon very highly, right? And the thing that you can learn is this, is you have to treat everyone well, because we have no idea from whom God is working through, right? If you only treat the people you think God will work through, but what if God works through someone else? And this is kind of one of the things that Jesus said is, love your enemies. And why would he say that? Because actually, to the Jewish people, Jesus was the enemy, right? So he's saying, love your enemies. He's saying, love me, because you think I'm the enemy, but I'm the one here to save you, right? And we have to realize is God can even work through the weak. Why? When God works through the weak, the most powerful thing is you see that it has to be God. Because if God works through the strongest person, what happens is you might think, oh, that person's strong. But if God works through the person who everyone's like, no way, then we realize it's got to be God, right? if it's someone that like completely not capable of doing it. So there's a lot of different lessons we can learn from this one. But of course, Deborah and Jael, great woman of faith and great woman of God. And I hope that we can learn a lot from them too. I wish there was more detail on Deborah too. Because one thing I was always curious of is how did she become, like a woman become the prophet and the judge of that time? Cool. All right, let's go to our next question. I believe this could be the last question, right? This is from Wiga. Wiga in Indonesia. Cool. It says, Wiga says, how to fix something that needs money. Example, health issue. To people can't afford medicine. Okay, so interesting thing about this is that's a good question because you're like, yeah, but doesn't this seem impossible? Right? Doesn't it seem impossible? Because money is something that needs to be fixed with money. It can't be fixed by like, you can't sit there like praying the whole time, God, please, I have no money. Money issues are fixed with money, which means what? From our level of thinking, we got to think about some things that are happening in our lives and some of the things that we see now in this time. People, it's amazing what is happening in this world. Like, for instance, one of the ways I just read a news article of this kid in the UK got money for his rare cancer, and he gets to go to this hospital in the US. And it's his family can't afford it. Really nice hospital, get plane tickets all paid for. All the treatment is done. And I was reading it like, what the heck? It was crowdfunding. People heard about his case, and then people started crowdfunding from around the world and raised enough money for this little kid to get all of his treatments done in one of the premier hospitals in America. So for us, we think to ourselves like, whoa, I never thought about that. Yeah, a lot of things are happening much different than we expected. And from our perspective of right now, sometimes we might think to ourselves, it is impossible. I'm telling you guys, even from my experiences in my life, the things that I've prayed for, and the things when it even came to financial things, you will get things in ways that are unbelievable, and you'll be like, wow, this has to be God. Is it impossible? It is only impossible for the level of how we're thinking right now, right? But I'll tell you right now, if it has to do with something like, say, something that needs to be fixed with money, health issues, or business issues, all these are different things, don't expect it. Like today's first one, like nothing fixes itself, meaning don't just sit there like at home like this. I'm like, okay, God, bring it on. Come on, I'm waiting. It doesn't work like that, right? There's people I've seen praying for 7 years. I've seen people who are trusting God even more without any doubts, and they're praying and they're putting their name out on the internet, and they're doing all these other different things. So it's not something where we pray and then we just sit there like waiting to see what happens, right? Like that little kid, his name got out on the internet, people found out, and then people anonymously started a crowdfunding site for this guy so that this little kid, I think he's like 9 years old, went all the way to going to America. So I don't know what the actual answer is because I don't know how God's going to work. But I do know is I've seen so many cases where people were able to be helped with impossible things, and then it became possible. Okay, so I hope that helps you out. But it's something that you need to put your effort in. I don't know what you've done, so I'm not saying you did or didn't, but put your effort in and think way beyond the box, right? Because only at our level, we're thinking, I don't know if it's possible. But that's just our level. So that's why we have to leave everything up to God, right? Or research a lot. Think about, wow, how do these stories all happen? There's crowdfunding, there's scholarships, right? There's so many different things that are out there available for people, even when it comes to financial things. Cool. All right. That is the last question for today. I hope you guys had a wonderful time. Thanks for watching. Everyone, have a wonderful and amazing week, and we'll see you guys again next week, Thursday, or even Saturday, 1 p.m. There's going to be a sign-up sheet in that room if you guys want to join our individual Bible studies every Saturday, 1 p.m., all right? Everyone, have a wonderful day. See you guys again. Bye-bye.
When I look at you, it's like I got the whole room on the tip of my finger, and I'm pointing it right back to you.